Hello and welcome to my channel Cryptic Wolf, and today we're going to be going through the process of my speed paint of Jessica Jones. So this piece was mainly for my dad's birthday, which was a little while ago, but to be honest I really like the show, so that's mainly why I was drawing it. So the show I'm not going to get too into because it's quite a complicated storyline and I don't want to spoil it for people because it's really good, so just take my word for it. I apologise for any background noise and annoying things you can hear because this mic is not particularly amazing and my computer keeps having negative reactions to it. I would also like to apologise for the fact that the line art stage is missing from the whole overall speed paint just because my computer's a wreck, as you might notice already, so let's get into the speed paint. For the sketch layer I wanted to focus on the darker elements of her character. For example, the eyes with the face shape and the depth between her eyebrows and her cheekbones, because I thought it would contrast well with the hair and it would just bring her out, because I knew I wanted to do something related with purples and a bit brighter in the background and lighting and mix it all up. The sketch layer also happens to be my favourite layer just because you get a bit more freedom with what you draw and you can edit it really easily without having to change the whole design, and it's a lot easier to just mess with and have fun, really. It's also cool to paint in really interesting colors and see the color combinations and just experiment a lot, really, because that's what the sketch layer is there for. See here with me messing around with some squares and things. That was originally going to be photos in the background because her character is known as a PI, but in the end it just didn't work with the composition, and to be honest I just didn't like it. It took me a while to get this bit right as well because it's just hard to draw legs because I worked really hard on the torso and I just didn't really know how to connect the legs to the background and the legs to the torso, and it was just a bit all over the place, but I eventually got there a little bit, even if they were a bit wonky, you know. So in case people were wondering, the materials and programs I use are my Wacom Intuos Draw, which is actually the cheapest tablet on the market currently. We're around £50, maybe $60, $70. And the program I use is Medibang Paint Pro, which is actually a free program because I don't have much money, and I messed around a lot with Paint Tool Sai and a bunch of different programs, and I ended up really liking Medibang just because of the simple interface, and I just thought it was really easy and nice to work with. But the only problem I would have with it really would be the lack of a really wide range of brushes, but I don't often have a problem with that because I use the watercolor and just normal pen tool usually, occasionally switching over to the G pen if I want a bit more texture. So overall my programs are pretty much the cheapest you could find, although I am hoping to switch over at some point. For this part I'm laying down some flat colors, as you can see, and the flat coloring is basically just filling in the line art but underneath the line art layer, so you can experiment a bunch with it and see what colors work again. This time experimenting with more so the end result. For each individual color area I made a new layer for this, and it's probably not the most efficient way, but when I shade I then take another layer as a clipping layer on top of the previous layer, and then as it's a clipping layer I can then color outside the lines without it showing over the lines. So you can see here where I'm going over the skin tone with my watercolor brush to do some shading, and it's not going out of the lines, so it's a very useful tool. Shading the skin is also one of my favorite stages just because of the way it suddenly comes together, because the face is what ultimately is what people are drawn to. So if your face is shaded to a way that is bringing people in, then it's extremely useful, really. I also apologize to those who don't really know the technical terminology, because I know that it can be extremely daunting and a bit terrifying hearing all the different terminology and kind of wondering why you're watching it. But don't worry, it's fine. If you're looking to get into art, then it's just good to keep watching different videos and taking up tutorials, and I'm no way qualified to give any advice, but here I am. It's also around this point where I start to consider lighting, which is coming from the right, and you can see the shadow I'm putting on the left of her face and the left side of her body that I took with an airbrush, and I went over her with a darker shade on the left side with a dark grey on a multiply layer, and used that over the top. And across her cheeks I also used an overlay layer, which I then added a really bright and vibrant purple just to bring out her eyes and her cheek area. It's also around here you'll see me start to use the mesh transform tool, which is basically the big net you see over the drawing, where I can pull and alter different dimensions of the drawing to kind of fit the expression a bit more. So for this part I thought her face looked a bit too soft and a bit too nice, so I brought down the curvature of the eyebrows and to make her look a bit more stern. You'll also see that I've taken the previous drawing and saved it as a PNG and then opened it again, so then the whole image is saved and compressed down into one layer, which I can then add shading and bits over the top. The background layer for me also usually takes quite a bit of experimentation, because I knew the color scheme I wanted to go with. It's just a matter of putting it into place and then adding this borderline of a very light purple around her so she stood out across the drawing. I also thought after doing this that she stood out a bit too much on the one side, so the side that the light wasn't hitting I added a clipping layer over the top of that and darkened it a little bit, so it gave her a bit more dimension and 3D lightness. I often also add this border to bring out characters, because it not only stands out against bright colors but also extremely dark colors, so it gives just this feeling of complexity of the drawing and the different planes. For this part you can also see me experimenting with what I was going to do earlier, which was of course taking the image and adding the little bit of text, but in the end I settled with just adding text with a slightly darker background at the end. So here we are approaching the finish line of the piece, and I would like to give you a big thank you to everyone who watches and comments and likes and subscribes and thank you very much, because I work really hard on these videos, so thank you. And if you're interested in anything at all that you see, my art, if you would like a commission especially, that'll be down below. Very cheap, very affordable. And yes, thank you very much. I will see you guys later. My next video should be out at some point soon. Thank you and goodbye.